Hey, y'all, Choice here. Thank you again for joining me again for another session of Choice Spirit. Quick word about environment. You know, when we come forth, forth into an environment that we have to grow through. We must grow through. So when we come in to this environment, our environment begins to it roots us into we are rooted into that environment. We come into that environment, and that environment begins to form who we that environment begins to mold us. It is said that when we first come through, before we come through as spiritual beings, we have an agreement. We make agreements when we come in. We make agreements as we come into an environment, before coming into an environment, so that we can continue our spiritual evolution, so that we can continue to grow spiritually. We agree to come through the wombs of our mothers. But once we get here, we then must exist within an environment, because an organism cannot exist without an environment. So we must come into an environment. And it is said that we come into an environment of our choosing when we are in the spiritual realm. Some disagree, some agree, I don't know. I'm just saying this is what's said. The other thing but I had someone tell me straight out, they did not agree to the environment they were born into. They didn't have anything to do with it. And I said, okay. Okay. So I won't touch that part. We come into an environment with an agreement from the spiritual realm to continue our spiritual journey and evolve through various experiences, so that we can continue our ascension as spiritual beings. But when we get here, and until we can make a decision to move out of the environment, we are at the mercy of our environment. We basically decipher over a period of time. We begin to choose what we will keep and discard. We grow up as children. We learn from our environment. We grow through our environment. And much of what we learned is based on what someone else believes, or someone else has spoon-fed us, as I talked about before. That then becomes our foundation until we become conscious, and then can pick and choose, can discern what we will keep and what we will do away with, especially if it's triggering if it's dictating our lifestyles, if it's having an ill effect on our lifestyles, then we may we will have to do some shifting. And we talked about the renewing of the mind. Really, all it is uh, shifting and changing the connections within the mind. Yeah. So anyway, once you come into this environment, you grow up in this environment, and what it does is it gives you things in which you have to work through for the rest of your life. It kind of like lays a roadmap. It lays a roadmap in which you will then go through these various pathways. And that all begins from your initial environment. Is the beginning of your, it's not so much journey, but it is basically a journey through various pathways to help you to evolve as a spiritual being. So you will have, perhaps you grow up in a very loving and confirming environment, affirming environment, a very nurturing environment, and then perhaps not. Perhaps a very dramatic, perhaps. What it does is it begins the process of laying to navigate through the next umpteen years of your life. And if you don't get it the first time, when the lesson or the experience presents itself, and you do not, it is so that you can grow through the experience, that experience will keep knocking at your door. It will keep coming until you get whatever that lesson is for you to get, so that you can move on to the next thing. There is no getting away from that. So even with all the great things that come forth in your life, there'll be these ebbs and flows. And when you are balanced, you deal with the ebbs a little easier. You manage your way. You're a little stronger. You worked a little bit. Your ability to hang on during those times has been strengthened along the way. So you're not just you're not falling apart at the first sight of conflict.